I would like to start with the very first.
Okay, Tim, do you want me to give you a countdown or are you ready to go?
We're ready to go.
Okay, excellent.
All right. So let's actually get a quick start with you just giving us a little detail on your personal background, what it is you do for work, and maybe a little family bio.
My name is Richard Chu, and I've been a delivery driver for the last 32 years. So I've delivered Pepsi for a few years in California, then moved up here to Portland, Oregon, and worked as a food delivery driver in the city and around the city for the last 26 years here. I'm a Teamster, and I'm married, have 3 kids, 22, 14, and 12. And actually, no, we just changed 22, 16, and 14. Sorry, my bad. And so I've been a Teamster for 26 years. We own multiple properties, real estate, pretty successful with real estate. And that has been fun. And I'm hoping to finish up my Teamsters so I can retire from that and focus more on the real estate. But kind of have my hands in a little bit of everything, from rentals to the delivery to we have a trailer. We rent out a trailer as well. And so the whole family participates in some of these jobs or businesses that we have. So it keeps everybody busy and active, and me more so than anybody else on my toes, I guess, because I manage all of it, and it's fun. I enjoy
Yeah.
it. It is fun. Some people say it sounds stressful, but it's not. It's fun.
That's great.
Yeah. So as a family, we get out and play outdoors. We do a lot. Probably to the point where the kids don't want to do it anymore because they're just exhausted.
Right.
The idea of going on a hike is not fun with mom and dad.
So you're an outdoorsman.
Yeah, I like to be outdoors. I'm not. I can't be in the office for too long. Even at home, we have an office dedicated to the businesses, and I have these big windows, and I have to have the blinds open, curtains pulled back. I need the energy, if you will. I need that light coming in. So even with that, after a while, I have to get out. I'll go out on the deck outside and work on the computer out there, use a laptop or my phone. So I like to be outside. Absolutely.
Great. And so, would you describe yourself as somebody that's had a lifetime of experiences, or do you feel like your sightings and experiences have been more in your adult life?
My entire life, it has always been known that me as the middle son and with my mother, we're both intuitive. We've seen spirits, ghost, if you will. Sometimes you hear little whispers. And in talking to my mom about that before she passed away, even as a young child, it was just best to describe that, when that voice is not your voice that you're hearing, that is like a guardian or it's a voice that you should listen to. It's that gut feeling that you have whenever something's bad. That's not your voice telling you that you should get out of there or that this is a bad situation. And so that we've always chalked that up to just being a guardian angel and listen to it. And so my mom and I have always been open to that gut feeling of things. So it's been with me for a very long time. Yes, young kid, which has made it. I guess when my mom and I sit down and talk, it's more tuned in with each other and with things that are going on around us. Where my brothers are like, let's talk about the here and now. What are we going to go do? What's something fun we can go do as a family? Let's not talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
But for my mother and I, it's very peaceful, and so yeah, I've enjoyed it as a kid and as an adult too.
Well, let's talk about your first sighting of something unexplainable in the sky. that brought your curiosity up and you weren't able to explain. Where was that and when?
The pertaining to like UFOs, that would have happened in 2002, and that was in one of my houses. In the we were living in it at the time. It was in the master suite room. In that room, the big bedroom window is facing to the south, and it was just a peaceful summer day.
So this was summer of 2002.
Yeah.
And where was the location of
I was in
that?
Troutdale, Oregon,
Troutdale, Oregon.
out there in Troutdale.
What time of day was it?
It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
We were just watching. I'm not a big TV guy, like I said. I like to get out and move around or be outside. I don't really want to be inside watching TV. I'm not a big TV fan. But my wife and I were watching, just my girlfriend at the time, me and Catherine, we were watching TV, just the two of us. And the TV was in an armoire. Armoire was opened up, and we had a TV downstairs too. We just were relaxing in the bed there and enjoying the breeze just kind of coming through the window. And it was bright. That's the thing. The room was already bright. It was a beautiful day. In fact, I'd probably take a nap nowadays. That'd be a nap. But we were watching TV, and there was, the best way to say it would be, a bunch of lights. How many lights? It seemed like it was 1,000 lights that were about an inch in diameter, each light. It just, all of a sudden, a 6-foot area between ourselves and the armoire this TV is in, and these lights out of nowhere just circled from the room. The room was already lit up, and it was like a mirror, but they just intertwined with each other and twirled. And it was probably 7 or 8 feet in diameter. And it took about 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds to twirl, fast, come together. And at that point, I remember just like raising up a little. We're both laying back, and I'm raising up. I was on the left side, and I looked forward like, what is this? And my wife is now realizing what's going on, and I remember her grabbing me and said, "What?" And then it all came together, and it whoomed. And when it whoomed, it was 4 feet high, and it expanded. And when it opened, I could hear whoom, and it was probably 4 feet beam that opened. And my wife screamed, "What the hell was that?" What she wasn't registering, she's looking at me, and what I saw was something I'd never seen in my life to that point. Was, I call him the spaceman. The best way to describe him is a body, a square body, and the CO2 tanks or gas that you use for welders use, they have a protector on the top for the valve. It's round, 8 inches tall. This thing's head was like that, and I was looking at him. She's screaming, and I don't think she saw him because I remember her looking at me, and I looked right at him. He's probably 4 foot tall, and his eyes in that, what I call that cap, his eyes were this, and they went whoop, about 4 inches up, each one, like, oh. And I remember registering that and thinking to myself not to move, not to do anything. This was, right, the weirdest thing in my life. And looking at him, she's screaming, which is almost muffled to me because I'm focusing on what's happening, which is out of this world. And it looked at her, its eyes went big, and then I remember it stepping out. And when it did, it had what I call a spaceman, spacesuit, arms, The body was big. You could see that it was inside of it. And it stepped out, it looked at her and I, and then its eyes went big, and then it turned, and then robotically just turned. And this is the weird part. It stepped 4 feet. It's now on the threshold of the door. And then it turned left and went left to disappear where that wall is. So this thing came in an array of lights, opened up, looked at us, its eyes did what it did, and then it stepped out, it turned and took 4 feet. I still own that house. And it's 4 feet max, stepped through that doorway, and then turned left. What's ironic about that is this thing just came in out of the sky, but it had to sidestep my bed, walk to the door, and then turn left to go along the wall to leave. So for me, it wasn't a spirit like I've seen before, a ghost, people will say. This thing had to obey the physics of the world. There was a wall in its way, there was a bed in its way, and it had to turn and step from the bed, go through the threshold of the door, and then turn left to go left, which it disappeared at that point, but there's stairs right there. So whatever this was, wasn't a spirit, because the walls, a spirit can go through walls. They just move around.
And in your opinion, was it aware of you?
Oh yeah, my wife was screaming, what the hell was that? And that's why its eyes did that, which is kind of ironic because it was like, oh, almost like, oh man, what am I, I scared her, whoa.
Yeah.
And the eyes were big, and so it knew. And that's the part for me, when I locked onto its eyes and it's looking at her and reacting, which she's right here with me. She's actually racing forward at that point. She lost her mind right there. She screamed out a couple profanities, and what was that? And I had been experiencing some things, for years before all this, and she was aware of that, but she asked me as if I knew what we just saw. I mean, this is out of our world stuff, but she just reacted, and I actually laughed, and she did a couple more profanities, went across the foot of the bed, not where those lights were, across the foot of the bed to the left, grabbed her purse, came out, stepped down, and went down the stairs. And when I went to the door of the bedroom, she was down the bottom of the stairs. She's out of there, right out the door, closed it, went into her car. It was parked in the driveway, and I didn't pursue her, and she left, and it took her 3 days to come back. It actually took, I talked to her, but she wouldn't, she was my girlfriend at the time, but she wasn't going to come back.
Did she have an opinion of what she thought it was?
She wouldn't tell me. It was, for me, it's very emotional because I've never heard anybody in all my years, I've never heard anybody talk about a spaceman. I've heard people talk about ghosts, entities, hearing things. I've never heard of anybody saying they've seen a man come in via beam, if you will, or energy like that. You can't make that stuff up in a loony house. That isn't, that's not normal in any way.
So she was terrified.
I'm still terrified. And and it's been 17 years, and she last week, ironically, last week, I have always said, I will randomly say to her, what'd you see that day? And I'm met with sometimes, the funniest one was that she said, well, I think it was somebody's car lights, and in the cul-de-sac back there that kind of whipped up, And I said, okay, I appreciate you saying that, but it's a second story and the cul-de-sac is down, and no headlights would shine into our house unless it was dark, and then the light, some of it would shine in, but this is the middle of the summer, at 1 o'clock. And so I have always asked her, I will randomly ask her, what did you see that day? I don't think, there's not many times that go by, days, that I don't think about that. I think about it every day. And it wasn't until last week I'd shared with her that I had read that she would never admit to what she saw because it's too powerful. And so when I said to her, this is a coming to God moment. I'm not going to ask you any more about that. I'm looking for confirmation of what happened. And I don't think you're ever going to give it to me for whatever reason. Maybe it was blocked. And I'm okay with it. I just want you to know. That's what I was saying to her. I just want you to know I'm not going to ask anymore. And she said, I'll tell you what I saw. And she told me, I saw the lights twirling around in that room, and I saw them come together, and I saw a beam open up, and that's the last thing I remember. And then I remember just screaming, and I left, and that's all I saw. And I said, you didn't see the spaceman? You didn't see that guy? Because I did. She said I didn't see him, and she didn't because she was looking at me. And her mother is very high-ranking in the government, in the Pentagon, and so, and her mother wouldn't share stories with her. I'm certain of that. But national security is taken serious in that family, and it is with me as well. I don't know anything, but what my wife saw is like nothing she's ever even heard of. You don't create that stuff. That's bizarre. And so I reaffirmed with her that when she told me this last week, I said, well, I won't bring it up. I won't. I'll stay true to that. I won't bring it up. But I know that I saw the spaceman come out. And she was adamant. I mean, it was an immediate answer. I didn't see him. Well, I know that because you're staring at me, asking me, screaming, what was that? And I'm watching him. And to see, I can't, I won't ever forget that. My story will never change. The details probably will get more detail, but I laughed. And I had to laugh because I had so many things that were going on over the years before that, just intuitive psychic stuff, ghost interactions and hearing things. And those things were, my wife now, my girlfriend then, she would hear and see things. And so it was different for her. And that was cool, but it was something that I had been living with all my life. But the activity had sped up. It was happening more frequently. And so I felt like I genuinely was maybe losing my mind. And when that happened, for her to see it, I laughed, which she didn't appreciate. I think that's why she left so quickly. Me laughing at what just took place. But I was laughing because I knew I wasn't crazy now. The things that were happening were so spectacular that I could really no longer share them with her because I felt like she was feeling like I was crazy, but that was the biggest. And at the same time, it was the most relieving for me because she saw it and I'm not crazy. And she has never actually said to me, I think you're crazy, or I'm suspicious of what's going on. And I think that's due to the fact that what she saw, because we don't have, the only thing I can compare it to is because I'm 50, almost 51, is Star Trek, when they would beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah.
You know, one of those deals. You're like, what the heck?
What color were the lights that were swirling, and what color was the beam?
Well, I say the beam. It wasn't actually a beam that came through. So the lights are, we have a room facing south, summer day, 1 o'clock. It's bright already. So these lights were, I called them molecules, is what I described them to my wife, because they just formed out of the air. They just started and they got bigger to, we'll just say that whole transaction is probably 2 seconds, maybe 3 seconds. So these lights that formed were the size of sand. And then they just got huge and it just like exploded, just whoom, whoom, wham. And then when that wham is when they came together. So they're twirling, they twirled. And it was almost like you had mirrors in the room because it was reflecting, the whole room lit and reflected. And they just twirled together. So when they finally come together, it's like one big gathering. And then whoom, that whoom was, you know, it was probably that, and it was wide. And
Was it gold or white light?
it was just white.
White.
It was just white, and because the room was already lit. I mean, imagine the southern skies pushing into a bedroom.
And what color was the figure?
No, that was just like a ghostly white. I call it Old Man Winter. It's just like a black and white, you know. When to describe that to somebody is to say, you know how you see Old Man Winter and he's kind of gray. He's like a black and white kind of gray. This thing that stepped out, it was this, I remember the arms being a suit. He had a suit on, and it was just white. You know, not like ghostly white, but like like a pearl white. So it wasn't like he was, you could see through him. I mean, it was just like an off-white color, and you know, again, I was shocked at the same time, but it was his face that I could see. I could see that whole headgear. It's just clear, so I could identify a clear glass or clear plastic, something around him. I mean, I could see this suit. I could see that, and I could see that the head didn't have hair. It was just a head. And that's the best way to describe it, is an 8-inch cap over the top of a CO2 tank or a gas. It's protecting the valve in case it falls over. It was a head that was like that, just tall. And it's goofy looking. And then to see those eyes go, whoop, so tall. I didn't see color in his eyes. I didn't see a human face. I just saw this head like that, just tiny little head. You know,
And then when he moved away, were you able to decipher any other features? What was his side like? How did the arm connect to the body?
it looked just like a spacesuit that we would have for our astronauts. You know, when you see them, they're heading out to the shuttle. When they're, you know, as a kid, the shuttle was going. You see them all with their spacesuits on. They're walking.
So it's flexible.
Oh yeah, it's like a yeah, absolutely. You could identify that it had legs. I could clearly see that it had a body, a mass. It wasn't a big thing. It was only when it stepped out, it looked like it was maybe 4 foot tall when it stepped out. That was the thing, the motion of stepping out. That was when you asked me that. That was one of the things, because when you see all that real quick and you're registering that it's happening, and that beam just boom opened, and then he stepped out. I remember him stepping out, and then whoa, you know. He's registering my wife, freaking out, rightfully so. But I remember that step, that motion. I remember seeing that, and then whoa, and I was thinking, what's going to happen now? And then for his eyes to react, that is in hindsight, when I play it back for myself, that was a moment in time that told me he registered her freaking out. He wasn't looking at me. She was here next to me, but raising up. But he was looking at her and then reacted like, ooh, almost like, oh, crap, and turns to go. That I saw, that reaction from him for us, which was, great for me because what I was seeing was so, you don't even read that in the comic books or, you don't read about that stuff ever anywhere. And for him to register and turn, and then I remember just seeing he looked like just a square, the movement of the arms. It was a parachute, or not a parachute, but a spacesuit. So you appear to be bigger, So I really couldn't see his hands and his arms. Everything was protected. It was just the register, the snap of seeing this spaceman. I've used the word traveler to describe him before, only with my family, my wife, the traveler. But the spaceman is really what it was. He's a spacesuit. But I didn't see like clothing. I didn't see marks on the suit. It's just
What did it make you think when you kind of interpreted what you'd seen? Your wife is gone now at this point. She's left. You're back in your house after this happened. What were you thinking you had just experienced?
I sat down at the top of the stairs and had a few minutes to just try to process what the hell just happened. And there was no processing that. That was, there was no questioning of what was going on. So when I say process, there's no process to think about what happened. A spaceman lights just took over the whole room. A beam opened up when they came together. And I just remember saying to myself, and a freaking spaceman walked out in his suit, and I registered his eyes. It's very imperative. His eyes were normal when because I'm watching him.
Normal like human?
Just like regular old eyes, yeah. Just like
regular human eyes in a metallic
kind
helmet.
Of off, yeah, just a clear helmet thing. I mean, it was like it was his own air, He's in his own environment and protected from ours. And, and I'm just clicking when I saw it, but whenever I was reviewing it, just sitting at the top of the stairs, what just happened, replaying it. And I remember saying to myself, and a spaceman came out, saying that, and then thinking when he looked and his eyes just went boom, and that's just the height, the regular eyes, and then boom, stretched out. The best way to describe that is like a Bugs Bunny's eyes, Bug Bunny from the car.
It's kind of animated.
Yeah.
And was it on the outside of the helmet, or did it appear like the eyes were
they were
behind?
Inside. Oh no, they were behind that helmet thing that he was wearing.
So,
I could identify that. I could see that. He clearly had a protective. It was a spacesuit, something to protect him from maybe us or the air or what. I mean, it was a complete suit with this goofy 8-inch head. It really does. It wasn't a normal head. It's just long and no hair, no facial features that I saw. I was looking at eyes because then when he looked, I'm looking at everything when he came out. You're just registers, 8 feet away, and all this light stuff twirling around, coming here, and then the beam. It is like a Star Trek series. You're watching the part where Scotty's getting beamed up. It really was, and you knew it wasn't the TV. Those lights. It started out of nothing, and they got big, like just big bubbles, looking like bubbles. They just got big, and then they twirled maybe 2.5, 3 twirls, so the whole room and not the whole room, but it was like an 8-foot area, cubic area, and then it just started and vroom, and then vroom, and then vroom, and then it went to the ground. It we were laying on the bed. We had a big, huge king-size bed, so it 2 feet, 2.5 feet off the ground. So it went down and then went up. And then she's freaking out and says, she used some profanity, rightfully so. But I'm focused on what's happening here because I'm registering that this is nothing we've ever seen before in any way. And then to see that guy come out of it, step out, wham, and then look. And that was the thing, step, look, and then eyes, boom, and then back, boom. He takes one step forward, boom, now he's at the bedside. And I do, I'm talking to you now, I do remember watching him because, just as a protector, I'm a strong guy. And I'm wondering, what's he going to do? What's going to happen here? But at the same time, you're not dealing with a dog or bear or a human. I don't know what we're dealing with, but I know one thing, he's here and it's happening, and she's screaming, and then for him to turn and walk alongside of that bed, and then go to the doorway, and then do that right-hand turn. It was very robotic, very everything. That's the way it is. Just boom, boom, and to turn and disappear. I was thankful. I don't know. In hindsight, what could I have done? I have no idea. Why didn't I chase him? I don't know if I can go chase that. You kidding? I'm startled and stunned, and I have a girlfriend who's freaking out, and I'm thankful it went that way.
Yeah.
It was that was peace.
Did you ever report
No.
this, or did you ever tell anyone about it?
I told my mom.
What was her reaction?
Never see anything like that, son. That's what she said. I've never seen anything like that. She has, mom's highly intuitive, as I said. She's seen ghosts. She's seen spirits. When I say a ghost, she's seen spirits walk by, just kind of come by and not register her. She's heard voices, and she's had images. She broke down one time. She's had images of police pulling up and stuff, and they weren't there. So, maybe she hallucinated. We talked about that. Did you hallucinate, Mom? And so I don't know, son, to be honest. I was stressed. But this had never been talked about. The only person in this world who I've talked to about UFOs, because it's never been something that I've been exposed to, was my Uncle Kenny. He's got two bachelor's degrees, and he's a Blue Angel. He was in the Marine Corps. He was a retired Marine Corps. And Blue Angels are Navy. They interact, they are with the Navy, it's my understanding. And my Uncle Kenny, he wouldn't lie to you about anything. And he used to tell us that the scariest times are going over Vietnam and heading out of Germany, and orbs coming up and catching us. Orbs coming to the plane, circling our plane under the belly, over the top, barrel rolling over the top of them, orbs, and then jetting left and right, but riding with them for 20, 30 minutes on the outside of their plane, going over to drop stuff in Vietnam, whether it was cargo or what. But Uncle Kenny had said, that there's no defense against that. You don't have a defense against orbs. You can't shoot them with a gun. You can't outmaneuver them. Those things are real. And he always felt, his opinion was that UFOs, we never talked about aliens, but just UFOs were travelers from the future coming back to try to help fix whatever it is that we do wrong. But he felt it, that it was just the future coming back to try to help. And those orbs, when they would chase them, they didn't do anything to their plane. So, what was the wrong that we did? He didn't really have an answer for that. But he did say orbs would chase those guys. They didn't chase them. They just come up out of the ground, when he's looking down from a plane, looking down that ground, they would come up. He said we could see them, and there was nothing we could do. too fast to outmaneuver them. He said that, what do? You keep going, you know, and he's a Blue Angel. You don't ever hear Blue Angels talking about that kind of stuff. I don't think that it was encouraged in the 60s and 70s. He was in there in the late 60s and 70s. He was retired, so 20-something years. But he would see stuff. And so when I shared that with my mother, and I called her to tell her, she's pretty much speechless. You know, I had no idea. And I didn't expect her to pity the situation or try to offer a solution. Nothing like that. And we knew better, you know, it is what it is. But it was a baffling thing for my mom. And I did share that with a friend of mine. He's a deputy. And he said, you should stop talking about that kind of stuff. People are going to think you're crazy. And my response has always been, still to this day, people would think I was crazy if I didn't tell you the truth. I'm not going to hide behind it. As bizarre and as crazy as it sounds, it's the truth. You know, it is the truth. And it is scary, but it's not like it attacked us. It didn't attack us. It happened. And I've never heard a story. I've never read a story. I've never heard anybody talk about that kind of a thing. And
yeah, I've never heard of anything like that. It's incredible. I find it terrifying. I wouldn't know what to do if that was my experience.
My response though was really thankful. I was thankful, and I still am thankful that it happened, because it was more than just seeing it. It was seeing something that we've never heard of before, and my wife got to see it, and it confirmed I wasn't crazy, and which was important for me, and that's why I was able to laugh, because it was so scary. It was scary.
Yeah.
But I wasn't crazy, and
No.
my wife saw it, and that might be why she's my wife,
Yeah.
because she's like,
You bonded.
we both went through this thing, and she would go hunting. We'd go elk hunting. I mean, she's a great lady. She lives outdoors too, but she saw this, and you know, I'm going to say now, she came to terms with it last week when she finally just said, "This is what I saw," and I don't know what it was, and I don't understand it.
It's an incredible
That's valid.
experience for two people to have. And even just that as being a little bit of closure for you should feel...
Oh, it's not closed though. It's I think about that guy. Yeah, I say he's a guy. I don't know the spaceman. I don't know. I don't know where he's at. I don't know where he came from. That was something, man. You know, our hair didn't raise up. There was no movement, pull of energy. Nothing. That just happened. The twirl, tiny to big bubbles, and that beam. You know, it made me feel so good last week when my wife said, when those lights were twirling, and then it formed a beam, and it shot up and down. I don't know what that was. And I said, "You didn't see the spaceman?" She said, "I didn't see that. I saw everything else. I just didn't see that." And that's right, she didn't, because she's now turned at me and yelling. She's coming over. She's on that side. She's coming over, getting away from that beam, the opening. And so she had a genuine response. And you know, I've cried a few times, more than a few, in review of it, and it has been with her. Me just saying, you know, what did you see? And I don't know what it was, you know. And then I'll tell her, well, I'm going to tell you what I saw. And we've experienced that conversation hundreds of times, probably 1,000, because I'll bring it up at any time. I'm never going to forget that. We'll never forget that. And let me tell you, when it happens, It's only happened one time. But it happened when we're watching TV on a middle of the summer day on a bed, just watching TV, and it happened. We didn't prompt it. We didn't do anything. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it picked my house. Out of every other place in this world, it picked that bedroom to go into, and with the two of us present. So, startling, yes. Scary at the moment. It would have been scarier had it come towards us. I don't know what you do on that. It is by far, all three of my kids were, like most people, were born in front of me. That's pale in comparison. That isn't anything. Okay, that's life, having a child. The thought that will go with me to my deathbed will be the spaceman. And that is, along with everything else that's happened with me, that is number one out of this world. My wife even said, "Do you think that's the government?" And our government's not that. Maybe they are that coordinated, but I've never heard of that before.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your next experience, because I know you've had a lifetime of experiences, and so your next experience, when did that happen?
So, it was 2017. It was September, probably the 9th or 12th, somewhere in there. We had, there's at the mall. So I told you about, are you asking about the one that came over the East Ridge?
Is that the next one in the timeline for you?
The spaceman was the first one. The second thing would have been in around 2014. Whenever I was in the parking lot of the Vancouver Mall.
What time of year was that?
That would have been 2014. It's about 2000.
And it was summer, or?
This was at night during the summer. Yeah, it would have been summer. Maybe, it would have been in the summer.
And you were at what mall? I'm sorry.
It's Vancouver. It's the mall. It's out off of SR 500. It's Vancouver Mall. They call it the Vancouver Mall.
Okay, and so you were on a routine delivery?
I was doing my food delivery, and I was delivering to Subway. And you park on the far west side up against, I don't know the road that runs right there, but it's a main road. It's on the far west side of the mall. And it's a little strip mall. And delivering the Subway. I parked my semi. I remember looking over and seeing the Sherry's guys pressure washing, and I questioned whether that was a friend of mine, an older gentleman, Ron, cleaning the place. He had the contract, knew he had the contract, and I looked over and I was like, I wonder if that's Ron or his crew. And I remember locking the door and then just looking up. That's what I do. I delivered for years, and so seeing Metaflight and just seeing planes move around, I just looked up. It's also a chance to kind of look around and make sure there's nobody around that could rob you or something. It's 4 a.m. And so when I looked up, I remember just seeing lights. I just took it that it was a plane at the airport. The PDX, Portland International Airport, is 4 or 5 miles away. And so I just kind of looked up. I lived in Troutdale, not at that time, but one of my rentals is in Troutdale, and so they have the airport there. A lot of planes fly from Troutdale to Hillsborough and around. So I just kind of looked up, and I saw these lights. So it was just like when you look at a light and you have tears in your eyes, things look a little more like wet, or a little more defined. They just they're magnified a little bit, and the tears in your eyes. And so I just looked up, and I saw this multiple clear lights, but what looked like a plane just kind of coming, just moving slowly, coming. And I didn't think anything about it. Okay, so it's a plane, just kind of moving around, whatever. And so I go into the subway, open it up, come around, turn off the alarm, open everything up, come out, open up my trailer doors, get my ramp out. And I remember looking back up, and I could see the same plane, or what I think is a plane, still kind of in the same area, still here, looking to the southeast. And I look up, and I registered this thing's not moving anymore. But it's got these multiple lights, not real close pattern, but it's like a house. You know, there's lights sporadically around. And I look, and I'm like, so weird, because it's not moving. You know, so you kind of look back up. I did. I looked back up. My eyes, I'm just trying to focus on this thing, and I figured it was about 3/4 of a mile away. So I'm just looking at it, and I'm trying to figure out, why is this thing not moving? Is it a helicopter? Is it a plane? You know, what am I seeing here? Why isn't it moving? Planes move. They have to move. Helicopters can hover. You're going to hear them. And so I'm looking. I see these lights. My eyes are, because I'm staring at it pretty hard, my eyes are kind of like twitching or kind of adjusting. I'm realizing this thing's not moving. My eyes are wanting it to move. Like my brain is saying, move. It's not moving. And I remember staring at it for probably about 4 minutes of just looking, trying to figure out what this thing is. And I look over, and I hear my friend Ron Satter. I hear his voice. And I look over, he's got a big rain suit on, because they're spraying water. It's not raining, but they're spraying water, cleaning the parking lot. And I almost chirped just a little whistle, you know, over to Ron, and to point up and say, what is that? You know, but I didn't. And instead, I just kind of looked back, and the light isn't bright, like hurting your eyes bright. It's just, it's clear. It's like mesmerizing. So I'm looking at this thing, and there's multiple lights, and they're not moving around. They're not pointing different directions. They're just like illuminating the side, you know, illuminating the side of this craft. And I remember looking and thinking, that looks like a deck. It looks like just a 10-foot, 20-foot deck with lights on it, lighting up a deck. And I just was looking, and I felt like somebody was staring at me. You know, this thing's watching me. But at the same time, I'm peaceful. I'm like, what is this thing? You know? So, but I'm, you know, again, I'm a delivery driver, and I remember that was a busy day. All those days are busy. And so I have to keep on my routine. It's going to be a 14-hour day. And if I hang out, it's 14 hours and 10 minutes, you know, it's just going to continue. So I run a few stacks back and forth. I look back up, still it's not moving. I'm like, well, it's not moving. It's been, you know, 30 minutes or so. Let's finish up, meaning me. Let's finish this up and check it out. I wrap everything up, throw my ramp underneath the belly of this trailer, close it, and I pull back and I look up there. It hasn't moved. It's in the same spot, it's not making any noise. And then I'm like, this is so crazy. But I felt no need to call anybody. I didn't feel a need anymore to call over to Ron. In fact, Ron was buttoning up his trailer in his truck. That's when I saw the burgundy looking truck. I say it's burgundy, it's night, but it's dark colored truck. That's his burgundy truck that pulls it. You're not going to tell the color at night, but I know it's Ron. And it's an F-150 pulling a long trailer. It's a rough look. It doesn't do it very well. And then he disappeared, you know, like they'd left, and I'm still kind of checking it out. So it's almost like you're just mesmerized. I was just mesmerized by it. And I remember thinking, I can't stare at it anymore. I had to go. I had to get out of it. I had to go. And I remember firing up my delivery truck, taking off and going around the lot, you know, towards the east, and coming back around, because this is the west end, coming back out on the main road and looking back up there and seeing it still sitting there. And I remember saying, I should, just to myself, I should, you know, say something to somebody. And but at the same time, there's just no desire to call anybody either. It was
So you never reported it?
No.
Did you ever talk about it?
Not for a couple days. It took a couple, maybe 3 days. And I was talking to my wife, and then it was just like a switch went off, and I said, Catherine, I want to tell you about it. And this is how I am. I tell her things, those dumb things that happen, might be a couple days or a week or something went by, just make conversation with my wife. And I said this, I explained to her what had happened and how I was looking at it. And she's like, looking at me like, huh, just, well, okay. And I said, but here's the thing. I'm finally registering that I think it was a UFO. And then she like perks up a little bit. And why do you think that? Because it wasn't moving. I said, it wasn't moving. And it was just sitting there. International airport, National Guard. You're not going to hover over the airport without them knowing. We're like 4 miles away, 5 miles away. And it just stayed there. And that was the weird thing. When I saw it coming, when I first got there, I could see it moving. So I forgot to tell you that, but it was coming. And I just kind of was checking it out. And again, it's the lights. The lights are not normal. They're a beautiful, clear light. And but it doesn't hurt your eyes. And then it moved over, and that's when it locked. That's when it stopped. And then my eyes were like playing the trick on me of like, come on, go. Where's the motion? Keep going.
Did you get any idea of a shape or a size?
For me, I'll replay those things to myself. What did you see? And one day I was delivering in West Lynn, the 10th Street exit, and I remember looking up and seeing a house up on the hill, going up West Lynn up to the top towards the Safeway up there. And I looked over and saw this house that had the outside lit up, so it had lights shooting down from like the eaves, outside eaves, shining down. It's just a look, and I was thinking, wow, now that is the size of what I saw. So I would say, in hindsight, looking back, a size of like a 14, maybe an 1,800 square foot house up there.
What shape
hindsight.
would you think it was?
It for me, it just resembled, based on the lights, just a spread out amount of lighting pointing different, just out. So I really couldn't get a good feel as to the size. I could just see these lights just kind of illuminating there, and that's
no
it.
outline or anything?
Well, it would have been like, when I said I saw the deck, which the deck was facing out this way, I remember there being a light here and a light here, and then a light that was just pushing out lighting up that area. But you could tell that was a deck. I could tell that was a deck. And it was like, what is a deck? That's when I just started registering. This isn't normal, but I didn't feel like this was. That's what's odd in hindsight is I'm looking at something hovering. It's got a deck. It's big, not huge. It's the size. When I say a house, I probably shouldn't even say it was a house. It's just smaller than a house. I don't know what happened to me.
You couldn't pick out a shape though. It wasn't a triangle or it was.
No, I just remember seeing that deck. And then I kind of did this with my eyes, just kind of shade the lighting that was around and just kind of looking. But I remember looking at that deck and going, that's a deck.
Was there any sound?
No noise. No noise. And sound can be tricky. I remember delivering at OHSU and feeling like I was having a bad day. And I was just probably ate something late, and I just was just grumpy and crabby and didn't want to really move. In that job, you have to move. And I remember saying to myself, God, I just feel crappy. And then no sooner I heard just above me, and I looked up, and that was the rotors of a Metaflight. And that particular building is where the morgue is. So when you're delivering the food, the morgue is the floor below. And most people don't know that, I do, but it's there. And I remember when I heard those rotors, I looked up and I saw that helicopter just clearing the building and coming back over. So I think what it was doing is it just flew in from the west, and I was on the east side. Or I was on the west, it was on the east. It just came over and then turned to come down. And I remember when I looked up, I saw that Metaflight, and then I said to myself, you're not having as bad a day as that person, So let's let's get going here.
Yeah.
And that, for me, that was hard hitting because I go down a hallway on that particular dock. You go down a hallway, and I take the elevator for freight. However, there's another elevator right there, which is for bodies that are going down. And so for me, it's a little more realistic, or reality of life is that there's a lot of people here down below, and there's a guy coming in or a gal, somebody's coming in on that Metaflight right now. And as soon as those rotors went back over the top of that building, there was really no more noise either.
Okay.
So the plane, though, or whatever that thing was, there was no noise at all. And that's what was odd, is that when I saw it first kind of coming over, I was like, oh, it's a plane. Those are cool. It's got a lot of lights. It must be a big plane, something.
Do you feel, in your opinion, when you had that sighting there on the back of your truck, and there was a friend nearby that you could have gotten verification from, do you feel perhaps there was some kind of numbing effect almost that was dulling your instinct to interpret and convey information about what you were seeing, almost as if it was telling you, don't talk about it, don't worry about this, look away, do your own thing?
In hindsight, yeah, because I'm very aware of what's going on around me, and I'm always just watching, because there's a lot of people around, homeless people downtown. I deliver it all everywhere, and so I'm very aware of what's going on around me. But this was peaceful. There was no anxiety. There was no panic saying, oh, what is this? What's going on? It was more, why isn't this plane moving? That was the real question. Why isn't this thing moving? It's just right there. And wanting to turn to Ron and chirp that whistle, that's all it would take for him. He's an old Franz driver. It's just a chirp, and he would have looked. And that's all it would have taken.
And you didn't.
I didn't do it. Yeah.
Do you think that something perhaps stopped you?
In hindsight, I will tell you that it was very peaceful. I didn't feel like I needed to do anything. It took a couple days.
A lot of people that have experiences say the same thing, that while they're viewing something, there almost feels like a numbing or a quietening effect, almost forcing a peaceful tranquility on you to keep you calm and to not express or alert.
Yeah, because it took a couple days. I'm going to say yes, because it took a couple days. I can't even say for sure, but it took a few days, maybe 3 or 4 days, before I finally realized that was a UFO. And when it hit me, it was like, what happened? Why didn't I pull out? iPhones were around. There were a lot of phones around. Why didn't I take a photo? Why didn't I call? Just hit 911. That's all you got to do. And have an officer or somebody, anybody, come out and look. You can see that. And I don't know why I didn't respond to that. I don't. So I can say that there was definitely an easy feeling. There was an urgency to get going with my job as well, but this is over a period of about 50 minutes from start to finish. And it took a few days later before I said it to my wife, and then when I said it, I registered, Catherine, that was a UFO. And then she's like, why do you say that? Well, I say that because we're 4 or 5 miles from an international airport. This thing's moving. I watched it move and then sit, and it stayed there. It stayed there for that whole time, so like I said, 45, 50 minutes. It's weird, because it had the lights going around, just on the different, outlining it, basically, kind of outlining. I mean, they're scattered, one there, one there.
Did it seem like a triangle or a square? Did you get any?
No, it was dark.
You don't want to put ideas in your head.
My initial thought was, this is a plane, and it's just kind of like flying around, avoiding PDX. Maybe it's going from Camas, which was really not near us. Camas was over there.
Yeah.
But it's just avoiding the landing and taking off of the PDX airport. And just plane. It was kind of cool, you know. I mean, it's got the lights. Say the lights. It was cool to see, but it was, you know, again, it was dark. You know, I'm not mesmerized by lights all the time. I'm not. But this, to see this thing kind of coming across, again, you know, my thought was, it's not making noise. It's not a helicopter. It's not Metaflight, you know. And what is this? There was no noise, and I just didn't even register why I didn't register that this was a UFO early on. Is out of my mind. I have no idea, but it took a few days before I finally said to my wife, that was a UFO. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a UFO. It was sitting still, Catherine. You can't lock still, you know, if you will. You can't sit in one space unless you've got the rotors going. That's the only way. And I see helicopters fly all the time from Hillsborough, Troutdale. It's very busy. We live on the east ridge of Mount Scott. The fighter planes fly over our house sometimes, the National Guard. They come in that way, the pattern. The planes are flying around all the time. You can hear them before you see them, you know. And I just didn't even register. This thing wasn't, I mean, like I registered it, but I didn't register that it's quiet. It's kind of pretty to look at, the lighting. That's like, wow, what is that? It's by far the one thing that has happened to me that I didn't have any kind of a real response to.
Interesting.
At that moment, it just was like, all right, so it's not moving, it's not doing anything. It's got a deck. I felt like the deck, something was just kind of watching me, but I didn't see anything. I didn't see anybody. I just felt like it was watching me, and I just stayed focused to what I was doing. You know, intermittently I'd stop and look. I do remember one time kind of looking up and going, damn, what is it? You know, what is that? But that was early on, and then started doing my delivery. And, you know, you're coming out of this trailer and then you're looking up going, is it gone yet? No, it's not gone. So, you know, again, it's dark. It's dark.
And so the whole sighting lasted how, well, you don't know, because you left before it did.
Yeah, I left before it. I remember driving towards SR 500 to get on it, to head out, and I remember looking up one more time, looking up and going, I wonder what the hell that is. You know, maybe somebody else sees it too.
And even from a different angle, it was still there,
still in the same
poised.
spot. Still in the same spot. Yeah, that I didn't move from that spot. You know, and I don't know why I didn't react, because it didn't move. It didn't move anymore. It stayed right there, and that's a weird response to something not moving.
Indeed.
It just, and I think the thing is too, in hindsight, you know, I want to stress that to you. It took a few days, and then I finally just said to my wife, no, like, this is a slow response. And then it was like, hey, Kate, you know, then the thought came, that was a UFO. And then I was like, oh my God. And then, so, yeah, that was weird. We have a response like that a few days later. I don't know how long it had been. I don't think it was more than, you know, 5 days or so, but it was a weird response, a way delayed response for sure.
Well, let's fast forward to 2017. You're at home, and why don't you walk us into your 2017 sighting? Where was that located and what time of day?
So this happened at about 9:45, 10 o'clock on
AM?
PM.
PM.
PM. Our deck, we had a big deck built on primary home.
And this is located in what part of Oregon?
This is in Portland, Oregon. This is off what they call the east ridge of Mount Scott. So you have Mount Scott, and then on the east ridge of it, you come down, there's a cemetery, and then you kind of flow up the east ridge of it, and that's where my house is. I'm up at the top up there. And you go 2 houses up, and you're on the top of the east ridge from where I'm at the park, and you can look around parts of the city and see it. And we're pretty high. I can look out my, where the jacuzzi tub is, I can look out the window and see the Made in Oregon sign. So I can actually, like I said, I used to hunt, so I bring out my .340 Magnum. That's what I like to shoot. And I bring out my, my big hunting rifle, and I'll look through my scope, and I actually can see the red nose on them. So you can see the deer kind of jumping, and then the red nose. And I wouldn't want my neighbors to know that I'm looking out the window, this big window, but they're not there. They're off to the side. But we have a good view of everything around us. We just had the deck finished up. It was after Labor Day. My wife and I were going to go out onto the deck and look at the stars. She's real good at satellites. She can see a satellite before I see it. I kind of really don't want to see the satellites. I don't care. I've seen them a million times go by. So what? But we were going to go out on the deck, hang out, summertime, end of summer, if you will, after Labor Day, right? I mean, haven't switched yet. She'd said, I'm going to use the bathroom. I went out the door, took a few steps out onto this new deck, and then I like looking over towards Mount Scott, main Mount Scott, which is, I'm on 141st, and Mount Scott, I believe, is you're right around 102, 103, depending on where you are up there, 108th Street. Each 15 blocks right from downtown Portland's a mile. So that's why I count that out. We're 141. Mount Scott's 100, if you will, maybe 110. So there's your distance. And I just kind of looking at the lights, appreciating this new deck that we had. It was much bigger than the other one, and I just kind of stepped out further onto the deck. And I remember just looking at Mount Scott going, wow, these, the big lights, you can see part of the valley over here. It's really nice. When I did that, there are red towers that are up there on the top. There's also satellite up there, the big dishes, like Coin 6, KTU and all them, their dishes are up there too, transmitters and stuff. I looked up and, and it's dark. When I looked up and looked at I always look at those red lights because they just ting, ting. What I saw was is up there with a spaceman. We're living it, There's so many things that have happened to me that I know you and I talked a little bit about some of the, not UFO, or, I'm going to refer to the spaceman as an alien thing because it's not from here. My primary thing is the just the intuitiveness, the psychic. It's all of it. It's all of it. There's not. Somebody said, "Can you read minds?" I said, "I can hear their thoughts sometimes, but typically, it has to be aggressive. I'll hear an aggressive thought, or I'll hear the thoughts. It's not like you're sitting there and it's a radio station that you're listening to, but you can hear the thoughts if you're peaceful." And you're looking at them, and they look at you, and I'll hear them. Not all of the time, but there has to be a thought coming from that person towards you.
Kind of an intuition.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that is a lot. That happens quite a bit. And then the hearing things, seeing things. You have any children? Do you have any children?
I do.
So when I purchased this other house that we live in now, we were all asleep and a hand touched my calf. So as a parent, right, when your child is sick or something's going on, they're scared, and they come into your room and you haven't heard them yet. Most parents are attentive to their kids when they get up and move around. This hand, small little hand, touched my calf muscle, and it was my left calf. I was laying on my stomach, and when it did, I turned and looked, and nobody was there. And I just thought that was weird.
Yeah.
But it did it again a couple weeks later. This time it was a little more of a grip.
Huh.
So I had raised up, and I had shared that with Catherine, but I raised up and said, There's a small child here, and she's kind of looking at me, and I searched the whole house, and I didn't see anybody, but since I've seen him. I saw him, and my daughter has seen him. My youngest son has seen him. My wife has not. My oldest son has not. But there's been so much activity for my daughter and I that. I felt good one day. I finally saw him, and I'm assuming it was him, but it was my daughter she yelled out, "Dad, something's wrong with the TV," you know, and my wife and I had just gone to bed, and we have these big French doors closed, and so she's coming up the stairs, you know, I mean, it's like the end of the world, boom, 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 stomping her feet. And this last year, maybe 2 years ago, I don't even remember, but it was recent, and boom, 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 and we're laughing, my wife and I, and then I said, here she comes, you know, internet, cable,
Yeah.
that's those kids' lives.
Right. I get that.
So she's yelling, something's wrong with the TV. And then she boom, boom on the door, and we're laughing. And I opened up the door and I said, what the hell's going on? You know, just jokingly, what the hell? And we're all fun and gaming. And she goes, the TV stopped working. You need to fix it. And it was dark. She'd had the hall lights on, these 2 lights down here on. And I laughed. I said, well, let's go figure this out. And I said, come on, Wyatt. So where she's standing is at the top of the stairs. I come out of the French doors there, and I'm like, come on, Wyatt, let's go figure this shit out. So I'm like, shit out. And I look at Wyatt, because Wyatt's not moving. And it's by the bathroom, which is probably a good 10 feet away from us on this landing. And the boy looks at me, and he looked just like my son's, the same face, and he smiled, and then it just pixelated out. He just disappeared, just a wave, and he disappeared. And
That's
I looked, and I
strange.
said, I turned and I said, Catherine, the little boy was just here. He was standing right there. They heard me say, Wyatt, come on. And my wife goes, you called him Wyatt. I said, he looked just like Wyatt, our youngest son. He looked just like Wyatt. And my daughter says, I don't care. She leaned forward. She's standing up. She leaned forward. She goes, I don't care about the little boy. Get the TV fixed. And so I said, well, shit, let's go. So down the stairs we went.
That's
you
a
know,
great
we're like
story.
stomping our feet. Oh, shit, something's wrong. And all it was, I just rebooted the internet. I didn't do anything. I just rebooted the box.
But maybe that was some energy being taken to have that happen.
Yeah, perhaps.
Maybe.
She's seen him multiple times chase the cat. She's watched him follow the cat down the hall. There's so many things. My oldest won't stay at our house. All the doors open.
That's interesting.
So it's kind of
Luis,
cool.
are you ready to go? Start up again?
I am ready to go. I just didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm ready, and yeah, but your guest is not here yet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's go back to 2017, and you're out on your deck, and tell me what you see.
I had moved, further out of the deck. It's a huge deck now, and stepped out and see more of the Mount Scott lights, all the homes sparkling up and through there. And when I just looked up, and the red radio antennas up there just kind of bing, bing, and I just kind of looked at the top and going, man, this is a great view. That second, a white light, what looked to be one big cluster of a light, and a size, I would say the size of like a, I used, like when you're watching baseball, you're at a baseball field and you see the scoreboard, big like that, 20 feet, 20 by 20, just a big scoreboard. But it was bigger than that. So I'm going to say size of a house. I've used house as a reference because it's not huge, but it's big. And this white light, the size, we'll just say the scoreboard, it has to be bigger because this is 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. Came over the top of Scott. When I was looking at the red lights, this came right over the top. Would be, in hindsight, with everything I've looked at, this is tree level. Comes right over the top of the trees, and it is moving, and it's big. Not like a building, it's big. And it comes over, and it is going down the East Ridge Road, runs up that way. It's coming over the ridge of Mount Scott. And I was like, I looked at it, and for a second I thought, that's an airplane. But what's it doing? Because this is the National Guard's way over here. What's it doing? And the second you're thinking that, it did, it made a 90 to the north. So it's coming over the west, heading east. And that's when it turned. And so when it did that, it didn't make a sweeping turn. This thing came up over the top, and I'm going, what is that? And it's running tree line coming down fast. And then it went left. Right to me, it went left. And then I'm going, oh shit. And then I can just feel my chest kind of going down. And I'm going, what is that? And then it then makes a turn to the east, a right for it. And these are instant. Over the top, boom, and then boom. And now I'm looking at it, this big bright white light is starting to pale out a little. And then you could see it. And I described it as a softball, a white softball coming at you with a just coming up like your pitch, it's just coming up. And I looked at it and I'm going, it's coming right at me. What is this? And I'm thinking I'm going to be an impact here. This is, whatever this is going to hit me. It came right at me. And then it was just climbing. It bottomed out at that level, whatever that is. It's probably at the cemetery at the bottom down there, you're probably 300 feet. So it's at 3 and it's coming up. I'm at 800 feet and it's coming right at me. And my heart's sinking and I'm just looking at it. And it's slowing down. And so now it's coming up this way. It's Tenino. It's now coming up over Tenino, and I'm looking, going, okay, where is it? Where is it? And I'm waiting. And I'm an outdoorsman. I hunted a lot when I was a kid. And I say that to people, if you hunted pheasants, they're fast. And they run to 70 on their speed when they're running, not running, flying. And so lead time on a pheasant, if you're going to hit them from a 90 across, you need to know exactly the lead. I'm good at that. And I'm leading this thing to see where it's at. And then the light just kind of goes to nothing as it's coming up on the ridge on Tenino. And there's not a lot of trees here. But it's probably, maybe 250, 300 feet above where I'm at now at this point, over the tree line. And then I look to see, where is it? And I don't see anything. And I'm like, anxiety, I can feel it's right here. Where is it? And then I saw just a little bit of white light, very dim. And I'm trying to get a figure, some kind of an outline of what this is. And I got nothing. I just got this little white, pale light, and nothing compared to what it was when it came over in size, brightness, all of it. And then I could feel my chest just kind of push in. I felt the chest just push in, and I was like, what's it doing? And now we got trees over here to the left, big trees. And I just kind of lost it, and then I just got a little bit of white as it was going through, and it got a little bit brighter, and I was like, there it is. And then I could just feel my chest just kind of pull down a little bit, just felt everything just kind of pull down. And it could have been adrenaline, but I felt my chest pull, and then I felt like, in my mind, I just felt like I was on it, and not physically on it. I could feel this release of tension, and it just, boom, gone. And in my mind, what I was feeling is that it just went over the top of Tenino on the furthest east end of it, where it drops into Pleasant Valley. And then I just felt like it swept to the left out over Foster, heading out towards Gresham and Troutdale on out that way. And I just felt like I could feel the pull pulling me on out. And then I just remember stopping and going, what was that? And then my wife came out, all right, let's check out some lights, whatever, look at the stars, whatever. And I just was like, you're not going to believe what I just saw. And then I told her, and she was like, well, let's look to see if we can see it again, which is like not going to happen. This thing's gone,
And so it's a white light.
It's a bright light.
How long did the entire sighting take until it was gone?
In all the times I've reviewed it, it seems like from start to finish is probably about 7 seconds. It didn't take It didn't take long.
And the whole shape of this was just a white light.
It was very bright. When I tried to explain it to my wife many different times over, I really have to like just tune into what it was that I saw. And that ball of light that came over the top of Mount Scott, when it came over the top and just came down, that was so fast. For it to travel that distance, for it to come over the top of Scott on that tree line and go down to what I think is Ridgecrest Road. Not the beginning of Ridgecrest, it's over more. It's coming over the towers. And then for it, so it goes through those towers with all those cables that support the cables and the towers themselves. There's, probably 50 different lines. They run, 1,000 feet out from various points to stabilize it. For that light to come through the top of all that and then come down, that was a little scary because I thought I was witnessing a plane crashing, but no planes have a big bright light. I mean, there's searchlights.
Was there any sound?
There's not one measurable decibel of sound. None.
Was there any atmospheric disturbance? Did you feel wind or a rush or anything?
It's a beautiful, beautiful September day. It was nice. We'd had a sunny day that day. It was awesome. The deck was actually radiating heat still from the sun. It warmed up those boards, and it was a beautiful day. You could see all the stars. You could see everything, and that's probably what made it so surreal when it happened, is that it was so clear and beautiful. For me, it's beautiful because you can see all these lights. You can see Oregon City. You can see it. It's just a lot. But to see this big mat, just a big light, like a ball, that's how big it is. You're not identifying multiple lights. It's just a big ball of light, and
how big was that?
Oh, I said earlier that it was like the size of a house, but it's almost like the size, when I looked at it and saw it coming over, it would almost be like your standard billboard that you would see advertisement on the side of the road coming over, long, octagon, long, not square, just, long, wide, coming over. And that's what was so shocking, is that in hindsight, as you see this big light, square, not square, but octagon, just, it's hard to describe. It just come racing over like, like, you ever seen a car chase when a car comes by you, just, and I don't see car chases very often, but when you see the racing of a car coming by, and you're like, what the hell? What are you doing? This thing came over the top so fast and made that hit 90, another 90, and then came right at me. And enough where I was like, this is going to hit us. This is going to impact our house. But the light was fading. So I went from this brilliant, big, white, bright light, not reflective light. It wasn't shooting out and lighting things up. It's just a big, bright light, and it boom, boom, over, quick, bam, and then
you didn't see
boom.
it casting shadows?
No,
it was emanating its own light. Was it following any roads or any power lines or anything that you could detect? Perhaps it was following a certain trajectory that was land-based?
Yes, I pulled out my spotting scope, and I also pulled out a bigger, I have a telescope. It's an old school, just a cheap telescope, but I just did like a 2-power and studied that hillside. And so you have a Ridgecrest that you come down Tenino, you go up, well, Ridgecrest Road is what it is. It's not Tenino, Ridgecrest. And it goes up, climbs the hill like halfway, Mount Scott, and then it turns left and it goes down half mile, and then it turns right and it kind of wraps around the furthest south end of Mount Scott and comes around and then drops down. You're going to be past Johnson Creek, to the south of Johnson Creek by mile, maybe 3/4 mile. There's another road. So between that road, when you're on the east side of Mount Scott, there is another road that runs up towards those towers. And they have multiple towers, multiple satellite or dishes, stuff up there that the different sources use. So we were up there looking around, my wife and I, some time back, and I said to Kate, I think that this thing was on this road. I think for it to move like it was moving, I feel like it was programmed. And she's like, well, what do you mean? You know, and she's my best skeptic. She said, why do you feel like it's programmed? I said, I don't know. No human could handle that kind of a turn. Can't. And our airplanes can't handle that. It ripped the wings off. For it to come over the top of it that fast and to make that turn, it was instant. Boom, this way. And so when you take that road and you come down and you hit Ridgecrest, the road, it tees into the road. And then you follow Ridgecrest to the north. Then it kind of snakes around and comes down and hits a four-way. Well, when you're at that four-way stop sign, if you look off to the left, so you're looking east, if you look to the northeast, my house is up on that hill, and that's where I was standing on that deck. And so for it to make those come over, make the 90 instant, and then make that next turn and then come straight at me, now it covered a lot of time within that 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and that's what was so shocking afterwards, is that this thing was moving. But then the light paled out. It was no longer bright. It just paled out. And then when it was coming at me, then I could see it slowing. And I'm looking, going, okay, that's when it all kind of worked. Where's it at? You know, lead time, it should have already been here. Where is it? And then I could see a little white in the trees breaking past me. And then I saw the bright light. The light when it got to me wasn't very bright at that point. Right? It dimmed out, and it wasn't very big. So this thing went from a very large scale of light to just nothing when it got close to me. And you know, and talking to a real good friend of mine, Bruce, he said, you know, it's almost like it was intelligent, and maybe it knew that you were watching, and it came towards you and slowed down, knowing that you were looking at it, and it slowed. And then once it got in through the little trees there, the little break part, it lit back up with a light and boom, took off. And that's a fair deal. I won't count anything out. I think that it had to be on some kind of course. I mean, what was it following? It took me a year after that point to go into the UFO reporting site. I forget what it's called, Norco or
yeah.
And I just kept hearing that inner voice saying, look it up. So I went back and I looked. It was a year later, and looked. And the report, I pulled it, but it was a family, or it was a couple that saw this light. And I gave you, I sent some stuff, but it was interesting to hear them say that they saw this light coming across. And I thought it was Silverton. It came across the tree line. It came across where they were at tree level, and went around them and then shot back to the north.
So the report you shared with me wasn't a filed by you report.
No.
This report was filed by a separate witness at the same time as your sighting,
Yeah.
corroborating the same. Did you look into the report and see what they saw?
I called, I looked at this. I just felt like I wanted to report it, but it had been a year. And the inner voice just said to look at it. Just look and see what you see. Just look. And so I did. And when I read their eyewitness from down in Salem, what they saw, and I said to my wife, Catherine, I asked her to come in there and said, this is the same time. We can pull out the receipts when it was done. And she just kind of looked at me, and I just kind of felt like she was questioning. I said, we can pull it out, and I can show you the dates that it was completed. This is the time. This is all of it. And it was cool to see that somebody else witnessed it too. And I called the toll-free number and asked if I could maybe find out who it was that did the report, and that wasn't an option. And that's fine, but I really wanted, whoever it was, I wanted somebody to know that the people that saw that, I saw it too.
You should file a report. if you file with the same agency, it doesn't matter if it was a year ago or 10 years.
Okay.
It'll still get filed under the same date. So you should definitely go back and file
Okay.
your report. What was the existing report? What was that other witness's description of your sighting? How did they describe it?
They described it as a white light, bright white light. They had looked, I believe they'd looked to the north, and a bright white light came down by their house, their acreage. And the report was that it was a bright white light that came by them, turned and went northwest from their location, and back, tree level, just gone. So they just saw it come whipping by their property at tree level, a very bright white light. And they looked at it and saw it, and it just, and then back to the northwest direction.
So
And,
they saw the turns that it was making.
Oh, yeah,
that
they-
you also witnessed.
Oh man, yeah, and that was what was so cool. Is they said they saw it go back to the northwest. So when it went back to the northwest, it's the same time. It's
That's when you picked it up
within minutes.
and started getting a visual on it.
That's when I saw it come over the top of Mount Scott, and
That's incredible.
the coincidence. I mean, it was a hooray moment for me, and my youngest Wyatt, I showed him that, and he's like, "What does this prove?" And I said, "It just proves that these people saw the same thing that I saw, same day, same time, within minutes. I mean, this thing is moving."
And the weather conditions
beautiful.
did not support ball lightning or anything
no.
along the terms of natural explanation.
No, this was a beautiful night, clear skies. It was for us in the Northwest. It was the best evening you could have. It was really good. It was a great time. You didn't need a coat. It was warm, and it was great. It was a wonderful wonderful night to be out there. I mean, we spend many nights out there sometimes looking just to look at just stars, the plains.
Was
nothing
this
specific.
the last sighting that you had?
That was yes, that's the last one with that, between the those three things that happened to me.
Is there anything else that you would like to include in conclusion?
Oh,
I do have a couple questions I'd like to ask your opinion on, but if you'd like to seal up any of your stories with any addition, that'd be great.
I think that there was nothing. It's important for me to say there was really nothing going on in my life. I wasn't a stress ball. I wasn't taking drugs. I wasn't on alcohol. I wasn't impaired in any way, and I don't meditate. It's very scary to meditate for me. And that calm, coolness invites the intuitiveness stuff to just kind of happen, and I've been pretty shaken to the core on that. And I'm more comfortable now that I'm getting older, but it's a scary thing, and it's real, and that will not and has not stopped me. I mean, a lot of friends who have said you shouldn't talk about that stuff, and I refuse, because what I saw was real. I don't know if it's a government thing, and if it is, then okay, it is. But the spaceman thing that I talked about earlier, I don't know what that is, and I'd be interested to find out, and I'd be surprised if it was the government. That's pretty big stuff, and the plane in the sky. Something did do something to me, for me not to react, for me not to take a picture, not to call, even chirp for Ron Satter, and say, hey, look, everything was like neutralized. And it took a few days to tell my wife, and that was shocking. But the other thing too is that when that ball of light came over, it only took 7 seconds or so, and that thing was moving. In my estimation, that when it came over the hill, when I did a little just measuring out time, I mean, that's moving. I said before to my wife, it's clicking about 1,300 miles an hour, and then it came to a snail's pace. It didn't appear to be where it was. To travel that distance, anybody in the world, government, non-government, skeptics, I don't care. You can come to my house anytime you want, and Oh, I'll show you. I'll show you the distance. I'll spend all day with you. It's real, and it's cool, but it's scary. It's a whole mix. You know, what the hell is that thing flying at tree level doing on a path like that? How did it avoid those cables? How did it avoid the trees? And I mean, it's really cool. I'm thankful. Even this, you know, the spaceman, I'm glad it happened to me, and not one of my kids. I'm glad that my kids didn't see that. I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful that I walked the other way. There's no defense against something like that. I don't think. I mean, I would have tried, but I don't know. You're dealing with something that we don't even write in our comic books, and we don't even go there in space books. Maybe in space books, I don't read them, but that spaceman, that was real, and I wasn't impaired, and I still own that house. And if somebody wants to go over there, and there's other things that have happened too. You want to come over there and hang out, you can do it for free. You can do it for free when it's vacant, and it's not vacant very often, but come on over and try to figure it out and see. It's the same walls and same paint, unless the tenants have painted. If they didn't paint it, the last tenants didn't. So you come over and check it out and see what you want. But it happened, and it's real. It is real. No impairment can. I don't think any impairment can make you see that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
That is real.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And thank you so much for sharing those stories. I know it's hard to relive some of those and to share those with the public and to share them with like-minded, interested people is really important to get the information out there and let people make their own decisions. And so thank you again for coming on the show and sharing your stories with us. And we'd love to have you back, actually. So please let us extend that to you as well. And if there's anything else you'd like to add, now is your great time.
You know, thank you and I'd love to come back and talk to you. There's a lot of things that have happened that are really interesting and really different. They're great though. They're wonderful. It's awesome. But the three things with the UFO, we'll call it the airplane, and the light that came over Mount Scott, they never made a noise. And so, you know, if there's anything I can say to anybody, is just look up. That's all you got to do, man. Just look up, and we all look out on a 90 and down. Raise your head up, bring it up, and just watch. And be ready. You know, I mean, it might shock you. The spaceman, I think, will make your blood go cold, and you may not move. I don't think people realize it's that fast. And when it happens, you're like, oh my God, you know, one of those moments. But
changed forever.
Changed for this guy right here. You know, you can see how gray I am. And it's probably hereditary, but I don't meditate. And maybe I'll get the courage to do it, because when I meditate, you know, there's other intuitive stuff that happens, but the spaceman, the UFO, and that light, that's not intuitive stuff. That is something
physical.
Yeah, and that is, that'll make you go gray, and it will make you cry no matter who's around, because it's so overwhelming to know that, you know, the 340 Magnum, right? We said that earlier. That's the gun I use, or used to use. I don't really hunt anymore. That's what I use because I want to make sure that I'm able to defend anybody that's with me. And that weapon is powerful and hard-hitting, hard-kicking. So that's what I use when I'm hunting and out in the wild to protect me and my family. It would have had no response to that plane. It's not a plane, whatever that spaceship, whatever that was. And by all means, it had no defense on the spaceman. In whatever materialized in front of me is right here with all of us. Is right here. It came out of nowhere. It was the size of salt, sand, and it just twirled. And within a few seconds, it was on, and there's nowhere you can go to escape that. So if it's happened to me, it's happened to somebody else, and they're just scared to come out. And I understand that, but don't be scared. Come out. I have many friends who told me don't go down there and talk about this, and I refuse to be quiet about it, because I really do. If it happened to me, I'm one guy out of how many people are on the earth, you know? There's got to be more people that have seen this stuff, and because it's not fake. That's not fake, and the spaceman is the most traumatic but yet blessing that's ever happened to me on that. And he left my house. He walked out of my room, and guess what? He's going somewhere. He didn't go back. Not there in front of me. He walked to the bed, he turned, walked to that door, through the threshold, and turned left along the wall, and he went somewhere. And I haven't seen him since.
And he left an impact. He left a huge impact with you.
It's taken my wife, you know, we're getting ready to go into 20. It's taken my wife 18 years to finally say what she saw.
Until last week.
The last week, and I asked her. Was her mentioning that any influenced at all by your coming on the show today? No, I won't.
This was so she talked to you before you planned on coming on?
Yeah, I said to her that I wasn't going to ask her anymore. In a joking way, I asked my wife more about Spaceman than what we're having for dinner. You know, not that it's her choice, but you know, she does most of the cooking. But it has been a subject for me since the day that it happened, and my truce to her on that was, I'm not going to ask anymore, because I read that it might have blocked you, and I feel like I'm raking you over the coals every time I ask, so I'm not going to ask anymore. It was just for me just to finally let it go with her. I'm not going to let it go, and for her to, you know, just calmly, because she's so pissy sometimes, be blunt, that I ask, because I'll ask in times that aren't appropriate. You know, I'll ask her sometimes after we've been laying in bed for a while, and
the memory comes back to you, and so you'll ask.
I just not even remembering. I'll just ask her, because she has never come back with what it was, and so when I said I'm not going to ask you anymore, you know, I'm just not going to ask you. I just want you to know that I'm not going to ask you, and I've come to the terms of the fact that you, I guess, can't tell me, and for whatever reason, and that's fine. I accept that. I just want you to know that. And so, and that was fine. I just left it alone, and then she just kind of calmly leaned back and said, I saw the lights. You know, this is what I saw. I saw lights form out of the air, and I saw them twirl, and I saw a beam that came together, and a beam of light opened up from the top to the bottom. It opened up. That's what I saw. That's what I saw. And I said, that's all I wanted to hear you say. That's what I've been asking for. You didn't see the spaceman. She goes, I didn't see a spaceman. And she was genuine. I didn't see a spaceman. I said, I did. This is what he looked like. And I needed to complete that part again. She'd heard it a million times, and she just said, that's what I saw. And I don't know what that was. And I accept that. And, you know, and I realized, too, she was looking at me screaming. She's scared. And so, you know, a kind of a distant friend said to me, you saw a spaceman come out of the sky? You saw this ripping of lights coming together? and a beam and you saw him come out and you didn't report it? I said, no, I didn't. And she goes, you just laughed. I said, yeah, I laughed because it concluded that I wasn't crazy with all the intuitiveness, a different realm of stuff, something completely different, that I wasn't crazy. And my wife, girlfriend at the time, saw it and understands what I'm talking about now, about just things happening. And so that was the best thing in the world. Yeah, that was the best thing. And she just kind of, she laughed and she's like, yeah, that is a crazy process. Well, not completely. I mean, if you have a lot of things that you're experiencing, it's like the icing on the cake. You know, it's the final deal that just makes you think you're crazy. But a witness was there to see it. Then it deflates all of that. And yeah, so coming forward is, I guess it's closure for some people. It's not closure for me. It's actually, I'm counting down on the time that I can put more energy into finding out about just UFOs and just the whole intimacy between, you know, the here and after, the UFOs. Some people say it's all the same. Well, it's not the same. There's a lot going on. And some people say, this guy's crazy. No, I'm not crazy, man. I'll hang out with you. You can test me. You can do whatever you want. You spend your money. You can have me tested. I'm not crazy. And I'll take any lie detector test. Yeah, I'll do anything. I can assure you this is real. And, you know, I don't think that they're here to hurt us. I mean, that guy left, though. That guy left, but he had to step around my bed. You know, that's the coolest part. He reacted to my wife with those eyes. Oh man. And then took a step towards my bed and then turned. So that was now physically in his way. And then he walked through the door. I mean, that's the most impressive thing, to walk through that door and then turn left to walk along the hallway, along that wall, and disappeared from me.
Well, this should be really coming forward for you, in my opinion. It seems like it's a good first step forward to digging up more information, because you were able to corroborate your sighting by just going online and looking up the date. Other people that hopefully are watching this will say, hey, I remember seeing something. Hopefully they report it. Hopefully they get in contact with the show. I'd love to bring someone on that also saw something you've seen, and getting the two of you together. Something like that. I mean, these things are happening. In my personal case, I'm finding corroboration from other witnesses on things I've seen.
Yeah.
So bringing things to the light is the best thing for us moving forward in 2020. You know, and getting full disclosure from the government, hopefully at some point. I think we're potentially moving towards disclosure. There's a lot of information out on the internet from all kinds of sources, military and civilian alike, that are corroborating stories and verifying that these things are real. And so absolutely, you're coming forward today hopefully will be a step forward in your journey as well to discovering more truth.
Yeah, look up. It
Look
really
up.
is. Look up.
Look up into the skies.
I've debated about just setting up cameras at my house and just have them shoot out different ways, the directions, and just record. Because if you think about it, we don't look up, man. We don't. We look out. I don't look up. Just look up for a little bit and see. There's a lot of activity.
And be ready with a camera.
You can have a camera, great. I know for me, when we go out and look nowadays, I just make sure my wife is walking out with me. You know?
Have a witness.
Yeah, and looking and just kind of seeing, and you know, you never know what it is. You know, so it's cool. It might be an asteroid. You know, who knows? It's okay. It's nice to see, and occasionally you'll see on YouTube where they'll show these little like 22-foot drones flying across the sky over baseball fields.
Yeah.
And you know, here's the thing. You hear from the old Vietnam veteran guys. You know, you hear the talk about bullets. They could hear it coming. You can hear you hear it coming, whistling. These things don't make noise. They're as quiet as can be, and so a
What
good
is it?
ear is not required. All you
Yeah.
got to do is just look up there, and in my experience, you don't hear a word, you don't hear anything, you don't hear nothing. There's no noise, and that's what's even more startling is that you're just looking, and then you see this, and you're like, and then it plays out in front of you, and there's no noise. There's no noise, and my uncle would say, we don't have. He's a Marine, so you use a little profanity. But we don't have anything that doesn't fly through the sky and not make noise. Even our baseballs make noise. Everything makes noise, but not these things. Not the orbs. They didn't make noise. So, what does that mean? You're not going to hear it and then look up. You got to be looking up, and you're going to see it. And
That's the way to do it.
yeah,
Keep looking up.
just keep looking up.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
And we'll cut there, Lewis. Excellent.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to tell you one. I'm going to go. I don't even know what time it is.